got a long ways to go. We're quite a difference in what's been budgeted, what money we have and what we're being asked for, so we got, it's gonna be a long, it's gonna be a long ordeal, so the only way to get to the end is we better get started. Thank you all for coming, and when your turn comes up, we certainly look forward to hearing from you. So, Pat, you wanna call your, you're up first from what I read here.
So we're gonna start with a general overview, and then we'll go through the list. I think in the pocket of your binders up there, you had a schedule. So
Yeah.
we're gonna start with section 1, which is the overview. Okay, so the slide that you can see up on the screen is a summary of the general fund revenues. It shows the projection for the current year, the budget for the current year, and the projections for next year's budget. So as you look down there, we're going to talk about, more specifically about all of the components of this, but just on a top side view, our revenues are expected to go up by $2,350,000, or about a 4.4% increase. So that's the good news. And if we look at what's contributing to that increase, so the first thing, the largest increase is the state income tax. The state is projecting a 5% increase in FY24 over FY22, and so we're mirroring their projection here. That would give us an additional $2.2 million in additional income tax. It's really been difficult to project during COVID with all the money in the economy, so that's their fearless forecast, and we're going to follow suit. On the property tax front, there was a 2.3% increase in property tax assessments. So that's going to give us another $1 million in additional revenue in FY24. And we have a slight increase in utilities, and our homestead credit is down. But all in all, the property tax is going to go up a little over $1 million. In the other category, one of the big increases that we're seeing that everybody is in interest income. The rates have risen dramatically this year from what they were last year, so we're going to see about a $500,000 increase in our interest income. Our intergovernmental funding, which is the monies we get from state, federal, and other intergovernmental agencies, it's going to go up about $159,000. Our highway user money is coming back slowly. I guess we're going to get another $104,000. That number used to be a significantly higher number in the past, but it's creeping back. So we're going to get an additional $159,000 out of that category.
I have a question about
Sure.
that. On the law enforcement aid, is that included in that number?
It is included, and it's pretty
51.
much flat. We're not really seeing, I think it might have been a couple $1,000s one way or the other, but it wasn't anything dramatic.
So that's included in the 51,000.
That $51,000 is just the detention center mental health grant, so it's in that other. That $3,000 other is a netting of all the other.
Okay.
Yeah. If I remember correctly, I think it was about a $2,000 increase in the police protection.
And Pat, that highway user, that's 104,000 more than we got last year.
Correct.
You don't have off the top of your head what that is altogether, do you?
I think we're down around $500,000 or $600,000. It used to be close to a $3 million number, so it's coming back slowly in dribs and drabs, but nowhere near the $3 million we used to see.
It's not exactly how we were told it would come back, but
That is not. You are correct.
Right. And then it really bothered me when I hear we have this huge surplus over there. My first thought was, well, if you paid your bills, you probably wouldn't have that much.
Yeah.
You paid back what you took from us, which was well over $2.5 million when we lost it.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
I haven't.
just my little soapbox. I apologize.
No, you're fine. Any comments, any thoughts you have, please let me know.
Right.
So on the declining side of the revenues, the recordation and the property transfer taxes associated with the housing market, they continue to fall. They fell pretty significantly in FY23, and we're projecting another 10% drop in FY24. So, it's just, there's really no more inventory, so we're just not seeing those levels anymore. The lease proceeds, they show a decline here, but it's only because the figures aren't available yet. We're still finalizing the leasing figures, so we're showing a decrease in the revenues because we don't have the lease proceeds, and you'll also see a similar decrease in the expense side, so it kind of washes out, and we should be getting those figures hopefully shortly. So overall, that's what contributes to the $2,350,000 revenue increase. Okay, so then, if we look at the expense side, so this schedule's broken out the same way, the FY23 projection, the 23 budget, the 24 budget, it shows the dollar increase budget to budget and the percentage increase. The top half of the schedule, we show Kent County Public Schools funding. You can see that increase there is a little under 2.2 million. And then you can see the breakdown, salaries, benefits, capital, of all the other categories to fund county government. If you go down towards the bottom of the schedule, you can see that total expenditures are just a little under 65 million for the FY24 budget. This is a $5.3 million increase from the FY23 budget. And that last line there, the surplus deficit, shows the difference between the revenues and the expenses. So starting out, if we incorporate all of the budget projections, the FY24 budgeted expenditures exceed the FY24 budgeted revenues by a little over $9 million. So we've got a tough challenge ahead of us, and this is our starting point. So we'll talk a little bit more about what the changes are in the expense categories from a...
Pat, I apologize, is that 9 million that we're behind, is that counting the revenue, the increase in revenue of, but we're still 9 million, even with that, okay.
Yep, yes. So, okay, so let's look at some of the expenditure categories. So the first one is Kent County Public Schools. The maintenance of effort increase would be about a little over $500,000. Kent County Public Schools is requesting an additional just under 1.7 million. So the total increase they're requesting is a little under 2.2 million. The additional request is primarily to fund salary increases, and I believe they're in the neighborhood of 8%. If we look at the salaries and benefits, the changes in it for county government, you can see the largest items there. We have requests for 8 new full-time and 1 part-time position. You can see them listed there. They are just about $450,000. The county budget includes as a starting increase, starting point, a salary increase of 6%, which is just about $750,000. We're switching our lifeguards back. We had outsourced them, so they were in contracted services. Now they're in salaries and benefits, so that's really just a swing. We have our election office on our salary, on our payroll now. They used to be paid through accounts payable, so that's a swing too. We have some position reclassifications, increases in overtime, and we have some savings in turnover. So overall, the salaries in this budget are going up a little over 1.4 million. Along with the salaries go the benefits. We have increases because of the new positions. We're seeing increases in pension costs and health insurance. So we're looking for our benefit costs to go up about 548,000.
It's about the election office,
Yes.
$70,000 there.
Correct.
Is that a new?
So we used to pay them as independent contractors, and it was in the operating section of the budget. And analyzing the recent legislation, we believe that they have to be treated as employees. So really that cost is just, you'll see a decrease in the operating budget where those costs used to be, and an increase now in the salary portion of the budget. They are requesting a slight increase in their salaries that we'll talk about when we get to the salary budget workshop, but
So
it's really a swing.
Is this a new unfunded mandate from the state?
No, it's just a swinging category. It's coming out of operating and it's going into salaries.
Okay.
So the slight increase in the salary that they're requesting will be something that's at your discretion that we'll talk about later on. Okay, so moving on. County allocations. County allocations are agencies that are not a direct part of county government, but that the county government funds. And this is a listing of some of the larger requests from those agencies. And again, a lot of them are coming in to talk in future weeks, and you'll hear presentations from them. One of the largest is from our health department, so 557,000. And you can see the list of other agencies, and these are additional funds over last year's amounts. So if you look, take it in total, our agencies are asking for a little over 1.3 million more than they did last budget. So, and again, we'll take a deep dive into all those requests later on in the process. This next slide talks about the capital on a real top side. It really just breaks it down by major function, public works, public safety, and other, which is mostly administration. So the capital request this year totaled just a little over 2.5 million. And again, we're going to have one budget workshop where we just talk in detail about all of those requests. The last category, the transfer to other funds, these are dollars that we take out of the general fund and put towards other functions. The largest increase in this is in water wastewater services, and we'll talk a little bit more about that today when we present the water wastewater budget. And we do see a significant decrease in the funding to capital projects. So there's just less projects this year. So in total, that category is going down slightly. So that's kind of a breakdown of it, just from a real top side. You're going to hear next from all of our departments who are going to walk through the primary, the main budget highlights of their needs and wants for this year. So I don't know if you have any questions on the summary. No?
Got a lot of questions, but now's not the right time.
Okay. All right. Well, then I think that our first appointment was Brian DeGregorio. And I am not seeing him. So maybe, no? So I guess we can move on to the second one, I guess is, I see Harris here, so.
So this is tab 3.
You get
So-
moved to the lead-off position? I've never,
If Brian's not here, does that mean we get to
told me
check
well,
that
you
box
know,
off?
I've never batted lead-off in my life.
Morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
Fine-looking group you got.
Okay. So Harris's presentation would be tab 3.
Present. How you doing?
I'm all right.
Good for you.
Good morning, sir.
I assume you all received the letter and various attachments that I sent in. The one thing I didn't include, but I will reference, is this space needs assessment and feasibility study that was done back in 2017 and 18. President Fitty is familiar with that. He was involved in that process, which began before I was even appointed. So I brought my copy. I don't know if there are any copies still kicking around here, but if anybody wants
I would
one.
bet you we got a copy of it.
We paid enough for it. All right. Anyway, the majority of the budget requests, line item wise, I think are fairly straightforward and largely consistent with what they were previously. It's not a huge budget for the court system. There are two areas that I think contain somewhat, well, one is very significant request and one is modest, but I think appropriate request. I'll address those two. If you have any questions as I go, please just fire away. I don't want to reiterate everything I've already provided if you've read it and don't have any questions. The first issue or area, I guess, would be the sort of general overall condition of the courthouse. And the apparent decision that was made, I guess, by the previous group of commissioners to exclude the courthouse from whatever plans the county might have for the other public safety, the sheriff's office, and the pension center. I think that this, and I'll refer to you, President Vivian, about what was going on, but I think the study, and those are also listed in a copy of the recent grand jury report that I provided with my letter. Essentially, the historic portion of the courthouse is over 150 years old now. The rest of the courthouse is over 50 years old now. All of the HVA systems, the electrical systems, the plumbing systems are all over 50 years old now and are at the end. I think this study, which was what, 6 years ago now, recommended replacement in 5 years because they were all at the end at the time of their useful lives. So I think it's a very long way of saying I would ask this new group of commissioners to reconsider the decision to not include the courthouse in whatever public safety plans may be forthcoming, and to reconsider engaging this firm that I suggested, which is Mance Woodward, or some other firm to come in and make a proposal as to ways to expand and address the long-standing problems with the courthouse. Alternatively, and I broke some of those down in the letter, the lobby and the security area is woefully inadequate and needs to be expanded. The commissioners had already approved last year the first step in a plan, which was, I think, engineering and architectural. A year has gone by now, and the procurement process hasn't even started for that. And I believe that the objective at the time was to have the whole thing done in a year, and we haven't even solicited the bids for
Do you remember what the price tag was for that entrance? I mean, that we talked about?
Well, I think the design of it was 25,000.
25 and another 35 or so. for
Something like that.
The construction was the estimate. And the first part, the 25, was approved, but has gone nowhere. And have, despite my repeated efforts to try to get it moving, has not. So, that's something that's already been addressed. There also is, and those of you who've been in the courthouse, I know that the former sheriff is aware of it, and Richard Fitton, you've been in there a bunch, and Commissioner Dickerson.
Fortunately, I haven't had to spend a whole lot of time in the courthouse.
We can change that.
No, I just,
In a good way. The way the elevator works, now, there's one elevator, there's one stairwell. So all the prisoners are brought in through the back door. They have to be walked through the public stairwell, into the public lobby on the first floor, go up the public elevator, into the public lobby on the second floor, through the public hallway on the second floor, into the lockup area. And when they come out of lockup, they go to the courtroom, they have to go back out into the public hallway. So every security assessment that we've had done says that is just a disaster waiting to happen. Independently, an attempt to get money through the state, through security grants to address these issues, we had an estimate done to have a second door put on the elevator that would amount to a service entrance in the hallway, so the prisoners could be brought in, the security could limit access to the stairwell, they could be taken up and at least partially moved without encountering the public. Unfortunately, while the state seems to have money available for things we don't really need, things we do really need that they won't do because they consider them to be structural or permanent and believe that they're a county expense in a county-owned facility. So we tried to get that done, we're unsuccessful. I think that the estimate for that was $130,000. I included it in the attachments if you want to take a look at it. And the third area is the front area of the courthouse. That's more aesthetic than anything else, but there are 1,200 or so people a month that come in and out of there. What are the flower beds or whatever, the landscaping out front is always in a pretty unsightly condition. And what the request is to just put brick pavers like the rest of the courthouse there, so it looks better and nobody needs to deal with it. I understand there have been issues with retention that have caused problems. So that's the other request. The other area is the staff salaries. Simon Clerk, Jury Commissioner, and their salary is significantly higher than ours. I was very worried at the time that ours may try to make a move. Fortunately, she didn't, but it caused me to take a look into salaries in neighboring counties which are similar in structure, and based on what I found, made a request contained in that previous letter. With regard to the rest of the staff, there's also a request for an increase, and that is twofold. It's based, one, on a sort of comparison to the neighboring counties and what their staff are getting, as well as, and I'm not sure, I'm still looking into trying to figure out how this came to be, but there are certain positions, as you know, on the court staff that are grant funded through the state. Family Services Coordinator and the Truancy Program Coordinator. Their salaries, although paid by the county and then reimbursed by the state through the grant, are tied to the state pay increases. So over the last 12 months, those two people have received what amounts to about a 9% pay increase. The other staff that have not. So it's, and this is not, this has been occurring for the last several years that they have gotten these increases. Just the two of them, the other staff members have not received. And it's reached the point where the circuit court coordinator, who is a supervisory position, second in charge over there, will be making barely $100 or maybe $1,000 more than the people she's in charge of supervising. And so certainly I think that is something to be addressed. I have looked into, and I'm open to the idea of trying to decouple those two salaries from being tied to the state, so this isn't a perpetual problem that we run into. I'm not sure mechanically how that's done, and I've reached out to the county administrator about trying to do that. Also have begun discussions with the administrative office of the courts to see how it develops to have those two people tied to the state. I've reached out to other counties, and there's a combination of ways. Some people it's tied to the county, some people it's tied to the state. So if it would be your all's preference to have them linked to the county, I'll do everything we can to make that happen, so it doesn't repeat itself, but think that those requests in the letter are appropriate and would ask you to consider. Thank you. Any questions?
No, I don't think so. Thank
So
you.
the former Board of Commissioners approved the lobby design from contingency funds,
Yes,
and there's been no action taken.
that's correct.
Correct.
It was broken down, as we discussed it then, into phase one, which was the architectural and engineering.
25,000.
To determine what could be done or needed to be done, to come up with a plan, and then phase two was going to be the actual construction portion.
So even phase one wasn't done, the design and,
Correct, not in FY '23 at this point yet.
but the money's in the budget to do it?
Yes,
Or
25,000.
And the construction was estimated by KRM at this number that we have?
Correct.
Seems a little high to me, the design numbers as opposed to the construction numbers.
Both would have to be bid out, so they're just estimates.
Apparently architects are well paid.
Apparently.
They are,
So that money's currently in your budget now.
correct.
Is there a way we can make that happen?
That's really probably a Mike question with the
Okay.
short staffing in Public Works, and a lot of our grants have been, they're very time sensitive, timeline driven, and this one is not. So this one, that's why this one was not prioritized higher on the list.
Okay. And I see you have them ranked here in your capital project.
I'm sorry?
You have them ranked 1, 2, and 3,
Yes.
the way you would prefer them to be funded. Preferably all 3, but we all know that that's probably not going to be reasonable, but we'll see. So,
So the money is appropriated for those
Just the,
3 capital projects,
no,
just the
Just-
first 2.
just the lobby renovation design,
Not the construction.
not the
part.
construction. The anticipation was that the construction would happen in FY '24.
We hear you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good to see you all.
Thank you,
Nice
Bill.
seeing you.
Enjoy.
The day is just beginning.
You were first, we're still in good moods.
Yeah, but the important thing is what kind of mood are you in at the end?
Thank you.
Mr. Brian Gregory? Brian, how are you?
Good morning,
Good.
gentlemen. I'm well, thank you. How are you all?
good.
Good.
Well, I mean, my budget's not terribly complicated. I think most of the increases are inflation driven, like many people, and everything's costing more money, paper clips, paper, you name it. I guess the big ask in the budget is the addition or adding a prosecutor, either full-time or part-time. It sort of coincides with the grant request that we made, adding responsibility to the office. But, the memo, my memo speaks for itself that I wrote in regards to supporting that request. But in that memo, I didn't address the idea of this new potential grant. And if we get the grant, the additional responsibilities the office will be taking on in order to manage that grant. So of course, having another attorney, with or without the grant, makes our office more efficient at handling every case that comes through the office. But it creates an overall efficiency, which again is I think elaborated on more in the memo. I don't want to take up too much of your time now, you can read that. I will answer any questions in that regard if you have them, now or whenever you feel the need or something arises in your mind, that you want to talk to me about it. But ultimately, the goal is, to make the office a more efficient place in prosecuting cases. So the less cases a prosecutor has to handle, obviously the more efficient that prosecutor can handle that specific case. It also gives us the opportunity to really focus one prosecutor on our past court, which is our problem-solving court, and also integrated into that, and hopefully some additions to that will be the project that the recidivist reduction project, if the grant is approved, that we'll be managing and piloting. So again, having another attorney in office would, again, make that process more efficient, make our office overall more efficient.
This is for a new position.
Yes.
Correct.
I thought I understood you in the beginning to say was moving it up from part-time to full-time.
No, it's an either or. So I gave it could be, I gave an alternative to the full-time and the alternative would be a part-time.
But your real request, you would like to have this new prosecutor. Gotcha.
Yes. But I understand the difficulty that you gentlemen have, and I understand that, creating a budget.
No, but that doesn't mean you're not supposed to ask for what
That's
you
right.
need. So,
And that's why.
we
that's why I
understand
did
that.
it. Yeah. I'm back again.
I
I
got
asked
you.
last year, and the ask is still there. And I believe it would make my office, the county's office of the state's attorney. I'm just sitting in that chair right now. But I think moving forward, no matter who's sitting in that chair, to have another prosecutor in the office would just make it run that much more efficiently, be that much more effective. And I think we do a fantastic job now. I'm not going to make it as if it's such a struggle, but that doesn't mean you can't improve and that the addition of a prosecutor wouldn't make us that much better at prosecuting cases, and I see that. And as my history in criminal law and the justice system, there's a sort of a culture out there with prosecutors and public defenders, people that are in public practice or service, public service, to take on what you can. I can handle it. Give me a bunch of cases. And you know what? They're smart people. I have smart attorneys in my office, my deputy and my assistant state's attorney. I've worked with smart people in public practice. Shore in Phoenix County. And you tend to get this idea that you can handle it and no worries, I've got it. But you know, I don't know if that's the right mindset, right? I think that obviously if you reduce your caseload, you're gonna be that much better at each case and dot those i's and cross those t's more efficiently. Even though you're doing it now, it doesn't mean there can't be improvement, and that's what I see in our office. I see that if we added an attorney, it would be that much better at what we do, in particular if this grant comes through. It would help support that project, but it also, in my memos, I said, helps support many aspects of what we do in our office that could use some shoring up with an additional prosecutor in the office to distribute the cases more evenly and then therefore allow those cases to be worked on more efficiently.
Very good.
So, last night I was reading through some of your attachments, and if you were to have, just a part-time prosecutor, how do you envision that would work?
Sure, and it's my understanding that a part-time prosecutor, with your approval, would be allowed to continue in private practice. And that could be useful to attract an individual that still has a private practice, that wants to continue in private practice, and needs to subsidize the income that they would receive in salary from the county as a part-time prosecutor. So, but of course, that individual will be limited in their jurisdictional scope and also type of practice, what type of areas of law they could practice, depending on where. So for example, like a no-brainer would be that they would not be practicing criminal law in Kent County. And I would think that would go beyond the borders of Kent County to adjoining counties, or maybe all together. And therefore, they would only be able to sustain a private practice outside of criminal law. And again, no private practice whatsoever in Kent County. And this is just the vision I have for it, if it's a part-time attorney, and if they would be continuing in private practice. Now, we could attract someone that just simply wants a part-time position in a prosecutor's office, and is not looking to continue on in private practice. But it would be nice to have that option, and I think we do, because I think if you approve that, that person could continue to practice law outside of the county, outside of criminal law, in other fields and in other jurisdictions.
Do you know of any other jurisdictions that have a part-time?
You know, that's an excellent question. I don't want to say I do. I think I do, but I could find that out for you.
I'm just curious to whether you knew how it worked with the overlap, so to speak. I guess ideally, it'd be nice if we could find a semi-retired attorney
Sure.
to move to Kent County, if we chose to go that route, so.
That's always a possibility, and that's what it just depends. Having the option, you may attract more individuals. It's absolutely doable. You just have to create the environment that there's no conflict. And if a conflict ever does arise, and they arise in our office now, you handle it, you manage it. And the key there is recognizing the conflict as soon as it comes into the office and adjusting your approach to that case.
Well, I would think that whether they are a criminal attorney or even just a civil attorney, there's the potential for conflict at any level there, I guess, technically. So, okay, but actually your preference would be a full-time position.
It would be, but I presented that alternative because, as I said in the memo, even a part-time prosecutor would help substantially in regards to our office getting our work done in a more efficient manner and distributing the cases in a way that's not overburdensome to the prosecutors in the office now.
Any other questions?
No.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
It appears that you really controlled your operating expenditures here too. I mean, not a real big ask there.
Not at all. And like I said, and the only increase really is because everything's gone up.
Yeah.
Everything costs more money. And
Unfortunately.
that's a credit to the office. It's a credit to the office manager, Angela Dowling. She's fantastic. And we were mindful, but I have great people, and Angela being in particular one of those individuals that help us manage things and manage the budget and manage our costs.
And it's also a credit to you as our state's attorney too,
Well, thank
for
you.
overseeing that.
Thank you.
For sure.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right.
few minutes ahead of schedule, but we are ready for tab number 4, which is the sheriff's office.
Sheriff Hickman?
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. How are you? Good.
This is my first time sitting in the big chair here, so.
That's all right.
The last guy wasn't going to ask for anything.
You fill that chair
that how
up
it
pretty good.
You're welcome to start,
Okay, so I see that
Or
the.
Pat, you
there it
wanna-
is. All right.
help walk through this,
Okay, I got you.
the request.
Yep. Okay, so I guess we'll start off with the new employee. Obviously, that's the largest expense that we've had, additional from what we have had in the past. I did have a number of justifications for a new employee. I don't think we should probably go into too much detail based on security concerns, but some of the things that I'm interested in is maybe trying to provide additional security to our schools. Again, I don't want to go into a whole lot of detail what we do now. We are legislatively mandated to provide security to our schools in light of the things that happen throughout the country. I think we can probably do a better job in what we're doing now, and this is certainly something that we want to try to enhance. Obviously, we provide full-time to the middle school and high school, and we'll be doing a better job in what we do for our elementary schools. Is part of what this position is about.
I don't know of anybody that doesn't have that on their mind. When you look at television all across the country, all the messes we've had in schools, I can't imagine anybody not taking school security and it being an important issue.
Yeah, I got 4 kids in the system.
Oh.
So I mean, it's, obviously I got a personal involvement as well, but obviously I, obviously care very much for kids, and I think it's something that is important. It's obviously a large investment, and maybe we'll have some different ways of which it can be funded in the future, maybe from other entities.
I would
but-
like for us, if you don't mind, sometime, when we could have a closed session just to get some kind of have a chat with you about what your ideas and stuff are.
Sure.
I
Absolutely.
mean, it's important to all of us,
Yes, sir.
and I'm glad you're taking a look at it.
And, I'm not saying that we're not providing anything, we are.
No, I understand.
And we have the assistance of the Chestertown Police and the Rockall Police as well. But I think as a county, we can do better. So that's the need for the new employee.
You're gonna do a better job than the last one, is that what you're saying?
Well, I think maybe the commissioners were allowing him to, that was always something that was on his mind, for sure.
You remember,
No, I didn't say.
I've been asking for this for a long time.
That's what I'm saying. He has certainly been asking for it for a long time, but he thought maybe now might be the time. So
That's enough.
I knew it was going, something like that was going to happen at some
Yo,
point.
sure, you couldn't do with that, you knew it was coming,
Oh, yes.
That was a pretty good
and
softball.
so did he.
That was,
Yeah, that's,
John knew it was
Yeah.
coming too.
I guess, so we go right down to the next one here, is that satisfy that part there? And obviously, I would like to come back in the
Yeah, I'd love to
executive
talk to
session
you,
and talk a little
hear-
bit more
hear you.
privately about what we're doing now and what we would like to do in the future, so. The training, and I had some conversations with Pat and Shelley about this. This obviously is a lot higher than what we have had in the past. I'm anticipating with a potential of a personnel move that we have within the office, possibly having to train 2 new people. And then, of course, I tried to make sure we budget in the event that we wind up hiring people of different sexes, then it would have to be in different rooms. So we have that additional cost as well. This, as I explained to Pat, is is what I would say would be the absolute maximum cost that we would have to have, including for the academy part. You know, I just don't know. I know the hiring of people is very troublesome for the police at this point, maybe actually a lot of places. But we're having a tough time, you know, in all areas of policing to be able to hire someone. I would like to try to think that we could hire a certified person, but that's tough for any agency to do. So very possibly we might have to hire an untrained person, and that's a considerable cost when you're talking about the housing and the meals and the actual academy cost. So that's why that particular line item is fairly inflated comparative to last year. The last person that we have hired actually to take my spot, and actually with the absence of Sheriff Price, we actually were able to hire certified. So those particular costs were obviously drastically reduced. But it was a sort of a special circumstance. That individual wound up moving to the county, and he's doing a very good job. So we were very fortunate to be able to hire him.
So, in reality, this figure here of 30,138 includes the training for 2 academy level training spots. Historically, when I was sitting in that chair and wearing that uniform, the county always felt, and maybe we want to change this, but the county always felt that, well, no one has a crystal ball and we don't know what to expect. You know, you may or may not be using that training, you know, dollar figure. Obviously, for your tactical team, they have to train 8 times a year, I believe. There is, and that's a mandate by the Maryland Police Training Commission. The way we've done it historically in the county, and I realize why you put that there, because I always wanted to put it there too. Because I didn't want the voters of Kent County knowing that I didn't present my budget correctly. Because if you have to come back and ask us for money in the middle of the year from contingency, it's a reflection on you.
Yes.
And so the folks that are listening out here right now need to understand that if we decide not to fund that total $30,000, it's not Sheriff Hickman's fault. It's because we didn't know that the money was going to be needed or not.
Yes.
And with the situation that we're in, we may want to adjust that a little bit. So if that doesn't happen for you, it's not your fault. And the voters of Kent County and the citizens of Kent County should know that.
Yeah. And historically, the sheriff's office has always done a great job in working within their budgets, and I certainly plan on doing that as well.
I know you will.
And so obviously, if that does wind up being slashed because of that, I certainly understand, but that will be certainly the first words that would be emitted out of my mouth if I have to come back here and ask for additional funds.
I would expect you to do that.
Would be, I had it in my budget, but you decided to take it away, but that's fine, you know, as long as it's on record here.
That's why I made the statement,
Yes, sir.
because I understand where you're coming from. I felt the same way.
Cell phones? So this is this is not a new concept with police departments, but this is something that would be new for us. The additional funds that you're seeing here are actually so we can actually provide department-issued cell phones to the deputies. I've talked with IT about this. There's obviously some security concerns with different applications that could be on cell phones, personal cell phones and things of that nature. There's also availability of us having a records management system that has all of the information from our databases. We can actually have an app on our phone that we could actually obtain that information from our phones. We also have the concern about our phones being subpoenaed for different cases that might be happening. So we would, as a county, we would have absolute say of what goes on this phone and what doesn't go on this phone, the security concerns as from an IT perspective. And also, lastly, I've spoken with the Sante Group, and we have some, obviously every county has issues and problems with mental health. And at this point, a lot of times the answer is to call the police to come help with a mental health crisis. This obviously isn't always the best thing, but that's the only available resources that we have. We go there, we're trying to, we have trained individuals, but, you're talking about a 40-hour training, you know what I mean? It's not actually a mental health professional of any sort. And we would like to work towards being able to possibly have a video service on our phones, and this isn't actually something that we would have to pay for, but it's actually a video conferencing, so to speak, with a mental health professional. So that particular deputy could say, here, why don't you talk to this mental health professional, and they can hand over that phone to that individual, and they have a chance to talk with someone other than the police officer that's standing there in front of them. And we certainly have, at times, we try to call upon them to come out, but it becomes problematic over the years, oftentimes responding from far away, and availability of people is just not happening. So I think maybe the video conferencing part is maybe a way we can close the gap and try to get them that professional help and that they may need in their time of crisis. So,
Also Axon.
oh yeah, the Axon is something that we already pay for. We haven't used because we're concerned about the subpoena part of evidence. But Axon has an app that you could put on your phone that you can now take all of your evidence photos with your phone. And as you know, they're phones, but they're almost like cameras, and they happen to be phones as well. I mean, the cameras are great on these phones. And we could actually take the evidence photos and that immediately uploads to the cloud system that is part of Axon, and it makes it all part of the actual criminal case that you're putting together. So when the state's attorney's office were to call on us and say, we need the evidence, body cam footage, vehicle camera footage, evidence photos, the whole works, it would all be under the same case number, all be a part of chain of custody, and it would all be, a recognized platform, and it'd be easy to share with them. Currently, we have digital cameras with memory cards that we take the picture, put into an evidence locker. We have an evidence room custodian that then processes the pictures, and it actually goes on the county server. Those pictures do, so that would wind up saving the space, some space that we have on county servers as well. So I think there's a lot of upside to providing phones for our deputies, and I think actually that cost actually might have come down, because I just saw a phone list from Verizon yesterday, and looks like they're certainly a very good phone would be for $39.99. I think I just saw come out. So that cost would probably be a little bit less than when we originally had researched that.
What would the cost be per month or per year? I mean, the acquiring of the phones is one thing, Dennis. Do you know what the cost would be for, I mean, I know what mine is with 4 on there.
Yeah. But Kim, do you know what it's like 30? Yeah, what is the monthly cost? It's 30?
Now the county funds $31.85 of each phone.
Okay.
And the deputy pays for the phone, and then the additional, which ends up being about $10 a month for the
Yeah.
deputies, that would be.
I think the monthly cost is like $39 is
Right.
what the whole.
So we'd be an additional approximately $10 a month per
Correct.
phone. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Any other questions on cell phones? Okay. Uniforms. Currently, the uniform that I have on is very expensive, and it's just, the costs just continue to go up. And we're trying to, we're working towards maybe a more cost-effective solution, but we haven't gotten to that point yet. We're still working towards in that direction. But, this would be, you're talking about any new hires that we would have and being able to provide uniforms for them. And that would just be that additional cost for them. Ammunition shows an increase, and as we all know that, everything has gone up, but, I mean, it shows an increase from last year, but, I mean, theoretically, the actuals from '22, I think were, only about 1,000 less than what I'm asking for this fiscal year, for the coming fiscal year. So, I mean, it shows a minor increase there, but it's really quite relative to what we have spent in the past. Like in '22, the actuals were 13, and I'm asking for 14. So it's really not that much of a difference for the ammunition part. The protective duty vests, that's just to be able to replace every 5 years. The vests are expired, and so we have to make sure we replace those. So that's on a cycle. Every once in a while, it'll be, in this case, 4,400. I believe part of the 5-year plan, I think maybe next year it might be 9,000. So it just depends on how things fall and when the replacements come and that type of thing, but they have to be rotated out every 5 years. The laptop and accessories for the new deputy position, that includes the laptop itself, the docking station, everything that makes it work and not a paperweight. So that's just part of the cost of the computer and things to make it work. The 6 laptops and mounts, this is something that we tried to get some of them replaced last year, and we had money set aside for that. Supply chain and everything else wound up hitting us, and we're not going to be able to get anything purchased for this fiscal year. I talked to finance, and those particular funds are going to be just going to be unused for the laptops, and they've been put into this for this fiscal year just because we can't get replaced. We have also put in a grant proposal to try to go ahead and maybe pay for these laptops through the governor's office. That's in. We don't know if that's going to take place or not. But I will say, since I'm here and talking about that, Penny's been great to try to get us additional funding. I mean, we've had our body cameras are something that's a substantial cost. She's worked closely with Captain Kettner here, and they've been able to pay for the yearly fee for our cameras, which is already something that the commissioners decided they're going to fund, and it's already been something that they have been putting together, and they've been able to successfully get funded for the last, 3 years so far. So they're going to be funded, and that's a substantial cost. You're talking, $30-some thousand for those body cameras every year. So that's, they've been working hard to try to go ahead and get those things. If there's funding out there, we've been working on trying to get it, and so far it's been successful with the help of the grant coordinator.
Very good.
Do I talk about the vehicles, or is that something that we wait till 11:30?
Well, it says to be determined. I don't know what, I mean, obviously, we
Right.
bring on new vehicles every year. I'm not sure what the number, if it says 7 there, I don't know whether that's what we're,
So what you're gonna see is each one of these department levels, presentations that have a vehicle, you'll see TBD there, but we are going to have one session when Mike is presenting that specifically discusses all the
okay,
vehicle leases.
that's what I thought.
And we're gonna have one page to show you, that will show you all the vehicles that are slated to be replaced.
That's just gonna be dealt with at a later time.
Right.
Okay. Well, Sheriff?
So do you plan on hanging around for that next conversation
Yes.
about the vehicles? Because being in your seat at one time, I know some issues that have been problematic for the sheriff's office, that when we get to that discussion, we ought to have you up here too,
Okay. I'll be here.
to see if we can eliminate some of the problematic stuff.
Okay. Any other questions?
No. Not right now. We may later.
Yes, sir.
Thank you a lot.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay,
And I seen Mr. Dennis on the
yes, so.
or the detention center is next, and,
Correct, and Warden
Herb-
Dennis will be joining us.
yeah, Herb's
Teams.
online.
However, we do have Captain Wicks and Captain Wallace and Miss Strickland. I always want to put that R in there.
Yeah,
I bet
don't put
everybody
an-
does that, don't
They
they?
get highly insulted when you put an R in front, in
So-
that name, Strickland.
Oh. Correctional Officer Strickland.
Good morning, Herb.
Morning, sir. How y'all doing?
Fine, thanks.
How are you doing?
Doing okay. Friday, I'll be better.
Okay, that's what we want to hear. You want to start, Herb, or is Captain Wallace and is he,
I can actually.
Captain Wicks is gonna,
I think the captains are prepared to speak to everything, but Herb is here in case you have any specific
okay. Well, then,
questions.
gentlemen,
Good morning.
good morning to you both.
I guess what I'd first like to start with is our medical. The detention center would like to propose changing the medical vendor of the detention center. Primarily, all the legislative stuff that's coming down with the MAP program, passing out narcotics. Going a different direction with the medical care will provide trained, licensed professionals there more with a new company. Currently, our vendor that we have is having trouble finding people, hiring people, which creates a big liability for the detention center in the event that we have a situation with somebody getting the wrong medication, and with people coming in with fentanyl in their system, they need to be monitored real close.
Captain, can you move your microphone a
Sorry.
little bit? Yeah, there you go.
Sorry, so that's the reason why we would wanted to go with another medical provider to stay out of litigation if possible. Currently, in light of the timeline, we don't have time to do a RFP, but we were going to piggyback off in a neighboring county with a new contract if it's accepted by the commissioners.
And you'll be hearing about that at a meeting.
Okay.
And the mental health side of it, currently, the vendor that we have want us to pay for the mental health side, which we currently getting a grant through the Midshore Behavioral Health for $51,000. But the vendor wants the county to take that, our current vendor wants us to take that, pay them directly instead of billing Midshore Behavioral Health, which would be an additional cost to the county until we got the money back from the grant. But we all believe that going a different route with the medical is going to be a great investment for the county from twofold. Protection from liability and much safer environment for everyone that we protect. So that's.
So it's a two-part thing. One is medical and the other one is mental health.
Correct.
So they're two different vendors.
Well, the one vendor would provide our mental health 20 hours a week as well.
And this has been put out, and this is the cheapest one that you've come,
Well,
or the most effective and
correct.
efficient, and
We did a lot of research, and a lot of agencies are using particular vendors that are providing great service or making sure that we're full staff 40 hours a week. And with the hiring, as it's difficult for everybody, it's paramount that we have, staff there 40 hours a week, nursing staff, trained professionals to deal with the mental health and the narcotic side of it, and the potential liability that the county could be, up against if somebody overdosed in the jail or had a medical emergency. And right now, the current vendor's not providing what we believe is adequate service.
And to be fair, the current provider also significantly increased their fee for the upcoming
Correct.
year, which is pushing us into a situation where we
And
need
it's
to
like
look outside.
57% increase, and that's due to hiring staff and maintaining staff.
But either way, whether the existing contractor stays or a new contractor comes in, it's
It's gonna be
significantly
an
more.
increase.
Correct.
so the current contractor, are they not fulfilling their contract to the full extent, or?
No, sir.
In other words, we have, instead of the nurses who are supposed to be doing their job. We got to see med techs and things like that doing this, but that's why I said the liability part. That's putting us in a bind that we should not be at.
Or they're providing nurses staff for the 40 hours a week, but it might be on a weekend when primarily we need them Monday through Friday when a lot of activity and the MAP program is going on when narcotics are being distributed.
So they're basically giving you telling you they were gonna have a nurse, an RN, and they're probably coming in with CNAs.
Correct.
Is this 246,000, is that for the entire contract? And it-
That's the increase.
That's the increase?
That's the
And our
increase.
current vendor. Yes, sir.
Excuse me, is that the increase for the mental health and the medical?
Yes.
Correct,
Yeah.
yes, sir.
Together.
He doesn't have it.
Yes, sir.
Herb, is there anything that the commissioners can do to help you with your current situation to reduce county liability and with the current vendor?
The vendor that we have right now, I think they're trying to go virtual, Sheriff, with the nursing. Because the way they're looking is that, they can't find nurses. And one of the things we have to think about is we need somebody inside the building. I'm trying to reduce, I think if we change now, it'll help us reduce it in the long run, because once we get a new contractor in, we probably can negotiate pricing over years, the following years. But right now, if we bid it out, they want us to bid it out because they're gonna actually up the price because they think they're coming in with a cheaper price. They actually gave us a date. If you don't put it out by the 1st, we want you to bid it, if I'm not mistaken. We got an extension, but I'm thinking they're trying to get rid of the smaller jails. And just because, well, the company that we use is a pretty big company. And our budget is really small compared to all the other jails that I've talked to. They really raised it. So, to that question, we could talk to them, and if they probably got an extension on years, maybe. But I'm thinking we're trying to get away from long-term contracts, which is kind of hard for detention centers because changing all the time creates issues too. Try.
Well, in my opinion, and I'm only speaking for myself, if it ever comes a time between now and your next budget being approved, that you feel that this is really putting you and the county in a liability situation, I would ask that you contact the county administrator to get on the agenda so that we can try to help you address it before it becomes a problem.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So how many people do they have at the jail, say, on a daily basis?
Which one, the medical
Yes.
itself? The medical department?
Yes.
They'll have a CNA and a nurse a couple days a week, a few days a week. There's only like one CNA on and then a nurse. But the problem we had in the past that we addressed with them was the fact that we wasn't having a nurse during the week when we need her. They would need them. They was on the weekend. And we didn't know really that they was coming on the weekend because we need them there during the week, and they knew that. So, but on their records, it shows that they had nurses there, but it's not during the contract.
Right.
The contract is.
So they're there, but they're not
They're
when you
minimally
need them.
fulfilling
And they're
the
there
requirements.
covering the shortage of the med techs that they needed. So they're coming in on the weekend to cover shifts, but not coming when we need them during the week.
So typically, it's one and a,
Yeah, there's none assigned right now. You know, they're floating. You know, we might get a nurse one week and next week we'll have someone else who doesn't know anything about the facility that they're coming to.
It's just very hard to try to have some type of stability when you have nurses in and out all the time. They're not familiar with the MAP program.
So this is the
Not familiar.
additional ask. What is the total ask? Do we
Remember
know?
which page it's on?
So, just the medical,
And I didn't mean to muddy the waters here, but I'm just thinking,
No, you ask whatever you want to ask.
it's on page 17.
And it's a combination of two lines.
Right, and they're right on top of each other.
Right.
So it's, the medical is the 1, 2, 3rd line down on page 17. And the mental health figure is right below it. So,
gotcha.
so there's a decrease in the mental health line of 65,000 and an increase in the medical. So you can net those two together to see the total impact.
Right.
You see them?
Mhm. So I guess moving forward, whoever we hire, you want a CNA and a nurse there for hopefully 40 hours a week.
Right.
Which will hopefully reduce our liability like the sheriff was.
Yes.
Prisoner food?
Okay, I'm gonna talk on the prisoner food. As we all know, everything's going up, and as my partner over here would say all the time, the price of eggs are going up, and it's tired of chasing the tin around trying to get breakfast. So, the price of, like per meal prices have increased because of inflation. The vendor food contract, will be bid out, but the cost will probably increase per meal. Changing vendors will be something that we don't want to recommend. This will put county employees that we have right now, people who work in the county work for that vendor. So if we go to another vendor, they will lose their job. And then we gotta get new people in and all that. But, this will put the county, people out of work who are employed by the vendor, but meal cost problems in the jail could cost the officer to get hurt. That's one of the main things that will, start things, bad meals. You know, if you get a bad meal to the public, it doesn't really mean anything, but to us, it means a lot because every officer has to deal with an individual who is not satisfied or the inmate's not satisfied. In most jails, that's what starts riots. You know, like we've been blessed, we have officers that are professional who can calm things down and things like that, but, you know, we tried to change vendors before, and when we did, it started a whole lot because the meals was really, not well. I wouldn't eat it. And I eat a lot of things, but I wouldn't, you know, I wouldn't eat that. But, like I said, changing vendors right now would cause more problems than we want. Also, on prison food, you got any questions on prisoner food?
No,
Things like
that's
that?
fine.
But these are things that, you know, like I said, everybody knows about inflation. But, the jail management system, can I go to that?
Before you go to that one there, Marshall, I do have a real quick question about prisoner food, and just for my own knowledge. Your current prison or detention center population runs somewhere probably around 30 to 32 people.
Yeah, right.
A lot of folks are out on home detention, waiting for their day in court or whatever, or they're serving out their sentences. In years past, and you were there then, and I was too, the jail population sometimes would reach in the 60s and even higher.
Yeah, we had 110.
I'm just wondering how you come up with the increase in food services when you have such a small inmate population. I mean, is this just your best guess, or?
Based on the amount of inmates that are in our facility, the less the inmates, the higher cost per plate. So, like, say,
Okay.
if we have 21 inmates, up to 31 inmates, it is $8.75, I believe, a plate.
That's right,
If you
I do
go
remember
down
seeing that.
to, below 20 or below,
Right.
it's $15 a plate. So
Okay.
depending, so we hopefully keep our,
Population up.
population above 21, so that we don't go to that $15 a plate. So, we have, brought in more, US Marshal inmates to make sure that that count stays above that
Okay.
amount.
All
There is, yes, a lot more that go out on pretrial level ones to, home detention, but we have supplemented that, spoke inside, said that two captains have brought in more, US Marshals, which also brings in more money, so.
N- Now that she brings that up, I remember reading about that, so.
And we get billed per plate. It's not a fixed price per month that we pay. They literally bill us for what they serve.
Okay.
Per week. So one.
I was just curious, and now that you juggle my memory,
That's a good question. Don't worry about it. We got it. We got it. Any other question on prison food? Okay, we can go to jail management system. The current system operating the offender management system needs to be replaced. It's been there since, I think, I started almost, and that's, so that's how outdated it is. I'm not outdated, it's the system. The current system has been in the detention center for over 20 years, and it's starting to have issues. The cost to replace the system will be a cost increase. To replace the system will cost $88,460 total license and service 1 year. Annual maintenance for the equipment starts out at $10,000, but will increase every year. This is for annual software maintenance and support. It also has a hosting fee, annual hosting fee of $4,000. The project will cost $2,222. For FY23 software also that we asked for last year, it's going to be added to that. It's already in that number. If this system goes down, we lose all data and all information, records of all inmates that came in prior. And a lot of times, different counties and states will ask you for records, and if we lose those records, it's going to be hard to, so we got to have that.
And this was highlighted by IT, correct?
And
Our
see,
IT department
yeah,
is
our
in support
current
of this
system
request.
has no IT backing, because when it was put in, IT was not involved at all. So when we need help, we have to either figure it out or try to call them. And I haven't seen a IT person from our present vendor since I've been there.
And they're hard to reach sometimes.
Can't reach them. So, and like I said, right now we get a lot of glitches from it, and people are asking for other records that we can't produce. We got to handwrite them or create another a Word document or Excel and send it to them. I'm doing data right now for the states, which I had to make up myself to send because I couldn't get it from our system right now.
I do too as well, that I have to do myself, which takes time to handle, and I have to do monthly, data.
Well, if the system's as old as you, it's pretty tough to do all that in Morse code, isn't it?
Oh, okay, you got that one. Training, training increased the numbers of new officers that we're getting. We have to send them to the academy. Food, meals increase, and like I said, they all need to go to training. I know the sheriff was up here earlier, he was talking about that, but the lodging and meals and all that stuff for training we have to have. So, and I think you will meet the new officers that we have, excellent, on the 18th, I think it's the 18th, we come up here, I think that night, and we're gonna introduce them to you also. But right now, that's it. That's all I have. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
I don't remember us talking about the personnel. It's just a new position,
Okay.
administrative specialist.
Yeah, I was gonna let Officer Stickland talk on that.
A part-time person, years ago, when Trish, she did have someone So, Trish was there 18 years and handled it very well. And it is overwhelming because there's more and more things, more data that I have to collect, more things I have to write up. And the warden. Anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, so in FY '23, I asked for administrative specialist one, and I asked for a pretrial person. I was given the option of which one first. So I took the pretrial person first, but we actually need somebody to deal with our records and our diminution sheets. The only reason I'm asking for part-time, because I don't have nowhere to actually put the person
You
to
had no
sit.
room.
I have no room. And actually, it's truly a full-time position. We're probably one of the only jails that don't have somebody that deal with the records, um, diminution sheets, taking care of court files, talking to the courts. We actually have Officer Stickland multitasking, doing bills, records, diminution sheets, um, filing, and trying to handle all that stuff when she's trying to help take care of me because I'm the messed up guy. So it's just a lot. So that's where I cut it down to part-time so I can actually get somebody in, see if we can request to get somebody to assist with some of those issues that we go through.
And especially the demolition, because if they're working with inmates' time, they're supposed to be getting out at good time and all that.
And sometimes I get behind, not meaning to.
All right. Any further questions at this time? If not, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Good luck Friday, Matt Warden. Good luck
you, sir.
Friday.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Lane Darrell,
Good morning, Commissioners.
good morning to you.
So Office of Emergency Services has three different departments with budgets. So we start with 5200, that's Office of Emergency Services, Emergency Management. Before they leave, I don't know, Shelley, if we could, she just left. So we've asked for a new position to refill our administrative specialist position that we lost in October of 2020. And it's going to be, talking to Shelley, also a person responsible for the police accountability boards, going to be assigned to our office, 50% with that and 50% to us. And I think we might be able to, if Herb's asking for a 50% person, maybe we could work it out where this one person could do all three of those things. That might be a conversation that we could have. And we have office space in our office that could house this person, so. I'm sorry Shelley's not sitting there, because I'm sure she would want to hear this too, but I think it might be a good fit.
Say that again now, I'm sorry, I
So
didn't.
we're asking for a full-time position to refill our administrative specialist position that we lost in 2020. Shelley's also asked that that person take care of the police accountability board needs as far as administrative needs. And 50% of that could be for them and 50% for us. There's a grant that might be available to pay for 50% of it through the police accountability board.
Oh, I got you.
And then sitting here listening to Herb asking for a part-time person, it might be something that we could coordinate with this one person between all three of those functions. And we have room for them downstairs to where Ethel used to sit. So,
Certainly worth exploring, so.
Absolutely.
Well, we've already signed off on that grant, correct?
I'm not sure.
I think we did already sign off on that grant.
You did.
Shelley, what would you think about, I just sat there and listened to them talk about one of the part-time position. Could this part-time position also help the detention center?
Potentially.
I mean, we have a place to put them, right? It's near them. And we could share with the detention center and the police accountability board. I think it could work. Brad and I were just talking about it for 2 seconds back there, listening to them. So, I think it'd be a good consideration. And I could talk to Herb about it too.
Yeah.
If I get out here today. So, anyway, that was my
Yeah,
main
I think
question,
I think
5200
that's
position.
I think that's a good idea if you can make that work with Herb and.
I think we can.
continue to look into it,
Yes, sir.
figure it out.
Okay. So that's really the only thing, we have some minor software update, increases in some software that we have. And the next one's emergency medical services. The large request that we have in that is for 4 paramedic positions. Our paramedic staff now, we have 3 scheduled every day, 3 different stations. When somebody takes off or somebody's not available, or we go down in staffing, we have to backfill with part-time or overtime. And right now, we only have 2 reliable part-timers. This would also allow our supervisors to actually supervise. Right now, we have 4 supervisors assigned to 4 different squads, and when they're working, they're responsible for a response area. So if they're assigned to a rock hall, it's not like they can go out and supervise the people. So that's that request there. I'm also concerned with a couple of retirements that we're going to be having coming up in FY '24.
Couple of the way,
Retirements of
retirement.
paramedics. And it's going to be very difficult to then try and hire at that time. It could be months before we find somebody. The way the market is right now with paramedics on Eastern Shore. So if we got ahead of that, I think it could help. Only other large item in emergency medical services for LifePak 15, heart monitor defibrillator. We've been getting one a year to replace old ones. I just found out yesterday that the amount of $38,000 for that defibrillator, heart monitor defibrillator, can be reduced to $19,000. We've got a MIMS grant that we were going to use this year that we cannot get the device until next year, so we can defer the MIMS grant till next year and just use $19,000 of that $38,000. And then under communications, really there's nothing there other than supply increases that we're seeing, and contract increases with Motorola for our pad and for radio. So really that's all that's there. Any questions about that so far, any of those?
I have none.
And the last thing would be to bring up the conversation again that we talked about last week with the 911 fees and whether or not you want to consider changing the 911 fees here in Kent County. As we talked about last week, right now it's 75 cents per line for everybody's telephone line here in Kent County. We're able to increase it up to the amount to cover costs, and right now we're about an $800,000 deficit in what we get in 911 fees compared to what we spend for the 911 center. So we're eligible to increase those costs if you would like to. It has to be done, notify the Public Service Commission by the end of the month in order to get it done by July 1st.
The end of April.
Yeah, they have to be notified by May 1st to get it done by July 1st of this fiscal year.
I think certainly it justifies being increased. I mean, we haven't increased this in,
18 or 20 years.
yeah, and it's, when you're talking about the expenses outweigh the revenue by $800 and some thousand, it's a pretty big number.
We bring in about $193,000 now with the 75 cent per line. And it would be, with every 75 cents you raise it, it would increase it ideally by about $193,000.
We're not gonna settle that today, but we'll certainly make note of that issue, and we'll have a further discussion when we discuss that stuff. But thank you for bringing it back up again.
It's just the timeliness of it needs to be, if you want to do it for this fiscal year, it has to be done. So
What would be your recommendation if it was up to you?
what we're seeing around the state is a 75-cent increase.
So
Between
it'd be-
75 cents, between 50 cents and $1, most of them are increasing it by 75 cents.
And it was, that would double what we're taking in?
And that fee is every month added to everybody's cell phone bill?
Every month to every line. So if you have 4 lines,
Okay.
it would be 75 cents per line on your cell phone bill. Or on your phone bill, not your cell phone bill.
That's one cost I think people understand. When they dial 911, they want somebody answering it for sure.
Sir?
That it?
Yes, sir. If you have questions,
John?
Don't think so.
No,
I'll speak to Herb about that position.
thank you.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Mike Mold?
And Mike has a lot of presentations for you, and we will break about noon for lunch and resume with Mike after lunch at 12:45.
Okay.
You need a break after listening. Right on schedule. So the first in the pile here is Public Works Administration. This, what we did over the last year, used to have an engineering section. After Jim's retirement, we pulled that into administration. So our administration is me, Dan, Jess Connor, which is our procurement manager, and then we had Barbara Shaw at the front desk in terms of support. So it's sort of like the overall administrative staff that we've got there. Basically, the operating type stuff, because it's pretty much administrative, we've got membership licenses, fees, the new offices, we had some setup with Dan getting situated with Jess. So some reduction there, we've got them in place. And the one standing desk this year, so good as far as capital items. It's pretty straightforward. From an administrative standpoint. Any questions on that one?
We can handle that one.
Soft meeting here. All right, the next item is weed control. This program has pretty much gets funded by state highway funds that we get.
Yeah.
That covers the cost of, it's almost we call it an enterprise type thing. It's supported by these kind of monies that we get in. Also, we do work for private property owners, Pragmites, weed control things there. So one of the issues where you're looking at the budget being half of what FY '23 is we have to wait for the state highway to come up with their contracts and their funding. So this spring, we're sort of operating on that previous one. Until they get their budget, we'll do a budget adjustment to add the additional funds to that. So we're projecting we'll be back at the levels we are at FY '23. We had some concerns whether we'd be able to do the weed control, but Jay Bennett has come back. We're trying to hire a assistant for him because you need 2 people when you're out there with the truck. Last year, we weren't able to hire anybody, so we had to borrow somebody from the roads division for that year. So the program's been struggling in terms of trying to get things done. At one time, we had talked about having 2 trucks out to try to cover that, but we were never able to. Well, first, there was the cuts from the state, and then secondly, just not being able to hire anybody. So
The
budget pretty much
pandemic
is-
put a,
Huh?
pandemic put a crimp in this
Yes.
one, too.
So it's pretty much a static budget that we've got there.
What type of vehicles are you using for this purpose?
We use the F-250s because we have to put a tank on the back to fill up with the herbicides that we use. So we have 2 of those. Now we bought 2. We replaced the old 1994, which is our oldest vehicle that we had. Jay was using that when he was kind of doing cross-country, going through brush and everything like that, and it scratched up. But that was our oldest vehicle in our entire fleet now. So that's out, but not having the staff to do the second round, we've turned that over to water wastewater for one of their vehicles that they needed. So we transferred that over. And if the program ever does expand, we can always pull that back. We're just making use of what we got.
So the extra new truck that you got on that last order, did that go to weed control or?
The vehicle that the weed control that we got rid of, brought in another one, because we didn't know where the program was gonna go. With the cutbacks in terms of not getting enough staff to do anything to have that second crew, we have that vehicle and that's turned over to water wastewater. Filled one of their needs that they had for a vehicle replacement. Any other questions? questions in that program?
I think we're good there.
Okay. Going to get into the vehicle leases. I think so that's okay. Okay. This program has been, needless to say, frustrating because of the difficulties with the chip shortage and everything. And this year, we're actually been getting FY '22 and FY '23 vehicles coming out. So we got to the point of trying to get the next purchaser or leases set up. So we worked through we have a pile of vehicles that'll be going out for potential auction or disposal. And they'll be coming in, originally coming in tomorrow, but they'll be coming in Friday, I think is when they're coming. To appraise them is what would go out, so we'll get the income back from that in FY '23. FY '24 will be the last of the 5-year rotation. If you remember, it was originally set up that we would replace all of our vehicles in 5 years and then get them on a rotating lease program. So that in FY '25, we will have the first 5 years of those vehicles then turned in. Those vehicles will be in a lot better condition than the ones that we started out with. And those will bring back more money back in to try to roll that back into the new leases. That's the way the program worked. We got behind a year, and I'm thinking that was 2020. Or the
Pandemic.
or anything with budget shortages and things like that when the pandemic hit.
Right, I think it was rolling into the FY '21 budget.
Yes. So presently, we have the 14 vehicles that we're talking about doing here, if I can count right. There's still 17 vehicles remaining in our existing fleet that would be rolled in. We've tried to manage in terms of a budget of so many that we could handle a year to try to keep that budget level going through the different years of doing this. But that's something we'll have to figure out with Enterprise in terms of going forward to try to catch up so all our vehicles get in this 5-year rotation. The list that we have this year that we came up with takes us to the point where we won't have any other vehicles older than 2015. We've moved through the list on that. The Sheriff's Office has one of the biggest needs this year to do that. Because of the number of miles, I think between water, wastewater, and the Sheriff's Office are the vehicles that accumulate a significant amount of miles in those 5 years. So Jeep Patriot is the one that we've had for the pool car. I know that one didn't have a lot of leg room, but that's 2015, so that's low on the list. We want to do that. Environmental Ops has a F-350 they need, handles towing and snow plowing. Building Maintenance, F-250 again for towing some of the trailers they have. And then Planning and Zoning has 2 vehicles, a Focus and a Jeep, that their building permits inspectors go out and utilize. And then the Sheriff's Office, the Crown Victoria, that is one of the oldest ones there, time to turn that one in. And then the Dodge Chargers, I think, from, Dennis can chime in on this, with all the gear and everything that the officers have to have and the computer availability, it's a little too cumbersome that they've had. So they've been transitioning to SUVs in terms of being able to handle all the gear and computers and things like that that go with it. So
And the Dodge Chargers are a maintenance nightmare.
I've heard of that too, correct. So I think what Dennis is looking for in his request is to replace these vehicles with Tahoes, Chevy Tahoes. We see a lot, if you see with the state police, they have the Explorers and the Tahoes. Dennis looked at some of the pricing where the Explorers may be cheaper in terms of a list price. The resale value on the Tahoe, because that's part of this whole lease program, is bigger, that you end up with the 2 vehicles about the same price. If not, the Tahoe will be a little cheaper. So that's the research that goes into when you're looking at leasing.
Do we look at fuel mileage as well?
That's the one question I asked Dennis. I don't know if he had a chance to look into that in terms of the mileage.
Yeah, he did ask me about that, and interestingly, when you look at the 2023 Explorer and Tahoe, they were both 28 highway, which I expected to be a little bit different, but that's what Google search is anyway. And it's kind of different with police vehicles more sense financially, but I don't see a difference in fuel economy, and I don't see a difference in the actual payment that is made to enterprise, so it's kind of interesting that it's that way. I don't know, I guess the full-size sedan, I'm not sure exactly what that means, but traditionally, since we've changed, gotten the Dodge Charger, we got to cycle these things out, obviously maintenance nightmares. I mean, I've never been a car guy or for a certain brand, but I can tell you that I'd be hard pressed to get a Dodge vehicle again, because the way those things, at 100,000 miles, you're talking about major engine problems. Throwing rods, all kind of, I'm not a car guy, so I don't know the terms, but I currently have a Dodge Charger.
That was
sitting out-
one.
Sitting out on death row, I call it, because it's just sitting out there, it's probably have to have about $10,000 worth of work in order to make it run again, and it's, what, a 14 or a 15, so it's really just, it's just a maintenance nightmare. But definitely for space, and if you ever were to think about it in this terms of, I mean, that's their office for the deputies, and they're riding the roads, they work 12-hour shifts, and being the vehicle that's a little bit higher off the ground and easier to get in and out of, and a little bit more room is definitely what you're seeing police agencies moving towards. Shockingly, it's about the same fuel economy, and interestingly, if you look at the actual price, it's a little bit less, so. And the upfitting costs are the same no matter what vehicle it is. That's putting all of the lights and sirens and all that stuff in.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, the column with proposed vehicle, what that is the replacement category. I saw that myself. So basically, it's referring to the vehicle, the old vehicle. That's why you see sedans associated with the Crown Vic and the Chargers. It isn't necessarily what the proposed vehicle would be. So, again, one of the continuing problems that Enterprise has, like everybody does, is trying to get quotes from the manufacturers in terms of proposals so that they can more accurately put numbers in. This morning, they were able to send Pat and I a little spreadsheet of some budget estimates. And I know she breaks these down between the different departments, but the FY 2024 budget estimate is $193,500. I can't remember, Pat, was last year 163 or something like that, was our estimate?
Is that just the lease payments, Mike?
Well,
That can't be the value of the cars, right?
No, it's he has the year one upfront cost by quantity because he's projecting the 6 months of lease payments. One of the things we did was, when we're trying to make these work, is we're not assuming that on July 1st the car shows up. Sometimes, especially with outfitting, it takes longer to get that. So we actually, in FY '24, we would see 12 lease payments. We'd only see, in some of these cases, we're seeing one lease payment because of the time it takes to get the vehicle manufactured, shipped, upfitted, and returned to us. So the estimates that Enterprise did was based on 6 months of lease payments in FY '24 for each of the 14 vehicles. So, some may come a little earlier, some may come a little later, but it averages out in theory.
So Mike, just for my personal knowledge, if we lease a 250, F-250, as opposed to a 150, the resale value obviously is going to be higher on the F-250 than the 150. And the same thing would go with the Ford Explorer versus the Chevy Tahoe. Resale value obviously is going to be a better value for the county.
Absolutely, yes.
Down the road.
One of the questions, want to add on to that, with the pickups we get, that we get the super cab. That's a big bonus in terms of when they resale it. So it's worth having the super cab, even if you got one guy driving around it, because we'll get a better return on it. The only question you get is when you get a crew cab, which is the bigger cab. That's where you have multiple people in the vehicle and choice. But 250s typically will go with the 250s because of carrying a utility body or a tank on the back or things like that, because you have the beefier springs to be able to handle it. But going back to what you said, if you have 250 and a 150 sitting there, because of the towing capacities of 250s, it's going to get a better resale value.
It's a heavier, dirty, duty vehicle, so, okay.
Now, I keep hearing lease, I've never leased a vehicle personally, so we're leasing, and then you're saying they're buying them back. Lease to me was always you pay a certain amount of money and it's their vehicle at the end of this.
Yeah, I've only done it once, back in the heyday when it first came out and everything, but what happens is, you lease the vehicle and then you turn it in 5 years, or if you turn it in earlier, it has a higher value. But we're gonna be going 5 years with the program. If the car comes back with less miles, you're gonna get bonus. What they're estimating at the end is what the value of that is to calculate the lease. If that value is more, we benefit from that.
Okay, so we're not technically selling the vehicle back, they're reclaiming the vehicle.
Then they sell it.
Mike, are we gonna have Enterprise in here anytime between now and, I mean, just,
We can have them come back,
I'm just asking because I think, Albert just asked a question about leasing vehicles, and, I mean, that program is something that was started 4 or 5 years ago, 5 years ago. I mean, it might be a good idea if they come in and talked about it, just so that my colleagues understand how it's supposed to work. And
I wouldn't mind knowing that, just from my own personal knowledge, I don't know a whole lot about it. And that way, if a citizen asks me, how
I mean,
come we lease?
we used to buy vehicles when the others fell completely apart and stuff, and then you got nothing for them. These people come in and made a pitch to where you buy these things and you keep them, and they're supposed to be overseeing this program, and when, and they'll tell us when they think we ought to be getting rid of stuff, and it's supposed to end up
Right.
cheaper for us and have a better quality of vehicle around all the time. Wouldn't be a bad idea if they come in and talked about it, because we do have 2 new commissioners that may or may not be familiar with the program, but it would be good for them to know.
No, I agree. We had them come in with the 2 former commissioners.
Yeah, right.
One of the big insights that I remember from the paperweight, talking to one of them, was that because we're a government entity, we get a huge discount on a vehicle that the normal person doesn't. So that's rolled into that whole lease program. So that's why it becomes it's a lot more profitable for us to be in a government agency to be in a leasing program, because that return on that.
And we're also paying less in maintenance because, and we were literally running cars until the wheels fell off. Now with the newer fleet, we're paying less in maintenance, we're getting better fuel mileage, and even more importantly, in my opinion, is the safety features on the newer vehicles. You know, the backup cameras, lane assist, whatever it is that they have, it's just that much safer, so we're seeing less incidents on the road.
And I would venture to say that almost every county government, probably on the shore, is now leasing their vehicles. I know sheriff's offices are. So we're at the 5-year mark now.
This coming budget will be 5 years.
This coming budget. I'm familiar with the sheriff's office vehicles, and there's 2 Tahoes that you have listed here to go. One of them I used to drive. And
Well, based on a
it
trip
didn't have
I
a lot of
brought-
miles on it.
Based on a trip I made with him coming home from Annapolis.
It's
a while
probably
ago,
shot,
It's
right?
probably in very bad shape. That vehicle is.
It's probably one of the ones on death row would be our guess.
Yeah, it's sitting on death row right now, for sure.
Maybe that one might be in question, but, you know, I know it's only got like 80,000 miles on it. And the other one's probably around the same. In a budget year when we might be a little tight, depending on how all this plays out, is, you know, how many other vehicles are in this situation that we're just getting rid of because they hit the 5-year mark?
Well, the goal was to first get this turnover, to get them all right. There are vehicles that don't have a lot of miles on them, just because they're pool vehicles and things like that. So we look at the years and we try to look at the mileage, in terms of things, and then make the decision on that to get things going. But keep in mind, when returning a vehicle in that does have low mileage, it's gonna get a better price, because that's gonna go to auction. So, it was an owned vehicle will go to auction. the fund and helps pay for the leases it goes through. So, like the example would be, you know, I know I had the discussion last year with the Parks and Rec, the van, the cargo van, didn't have a lot of miles on it, but it's a 2008 vehicle. So that year we did a pass on it. So I'm bringing that back into the discussion to get that one replaced, because now we're getting into an old, probably one of the older vehicles in the entire fleet. But when you think about, you know, they're taking other people, citizens in the van, you want a safe vehicle to take that into consideration, time to replace it.
It probably would be good to have them come in. I mean, there was a projected savings that kind of, you know, we were anticipating, and it's been 5 years now, so it'd be interesting to see how close we came to the mark they said we were gonna hit.
Yeah.
Okay. We have a master list with all of the vehicles that I'm working on, because it's 136 on the list there. And that doesn't include all the heavy equipment. That's managed set, dump trucks and things like that, excavators, so.
We have 136 vehicles. Wow.
It's not hard when you're driving around, and you see that seal go by, see them doing their thing.
Oh, yeah, you certainly see them. I mean, but that's not, like you said, that's not counting the dump trucks and bulldoze, or
Tractors.
backhoes or whatever.
Great alls.
Wow.
Any other questions on that?
I guess when you say there's 136 vehicles, and they all serve a purpose, I guess, to a certain degree.
Absolutely. And
but-
we did, 2 years ago, Shelley did a reach out to all the different departments to see if there were vehicles that they had in their fleet that they just weren't really using. And we went through and did a bunch of transfers of vehicles to other departments to try to fill the gap when we didn't order leases that one year. So we transitioned a bunch of them to do that, to try to, you know, they're not being used a lot, then maybe they didn't need it, or they can borrow
Right,
someone else.
we're trying to continually evaluate, you know, if a department has 4 vehicles, do they really need 4? Do they need 3? Do they need 5? I mean, what is the real need? So there shouldn't be anything that's just sitting around not getting used.
The other thing I'm trying to do with my department is the vehicles that we have get assigned to someone, so that person's responsible for that vehicle and keeping it clean, taking care of it. Rather than sometimes when you get 12 different people using the vehicle, and the lunch wrappers start filling
There's
up.
always somebody else's trash in there. Yeah.
So we might get some more responsibility with that.
Well, I think it's a good idea that you monitor all that closely, that if we have a vehicle that's not really being used as much as we think it should be, for whatever reason, that we look at maybe making sure that it gets used a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. That's,
I
every
mean-
5 years, that's a lot of vehicles every year, if we're rotating them every, it's a pretty big number.
All right. No other questions? Go on to the next one.
Before you move on, this is all about leasing the vehicles, what you just discussed here. Due to my previous position, I know that there's a problem, especially with the sheriff's office. And they're now getting to the point, and probably EMS is the same way, and some of the other departments may have the same situation, where we, as commissioners, approve a budget, and we approve the number of vehicles that we're going to get. And currently, the sheriff's office, I know, and I don't know about the other departments, but a lot of departments are still waiting on the vehicles from last year's budget. And it's because they weren't ordered until like September,
Well,
from what I was told.
The quotes were put in. The problem is, because of the chip shortage, the manufacturers never released them. I think we're down to that one leftover vehicle for the sheriff's department.
Yeah.
We got all of our deliveries. The crane truck for water wastewater finally showed up last week. So that there's been a lot of catch up now. You've seen dealers' lots are starting to populate.
But this has been a problem, I know, for the sheriff's office. You know, because, and a lot of this really goes back to before we were leasing vehicles, where we had vehicles that were almost unsafe to even be out there, with enormous amount of miles on them. And next thing you know, we're December, December, getting the vehicle that was supposed to be here, and this was even before the chip problem. So I almost think that sometime in the very near future, this might be something that we really need to look at early on,
Earlier than now, you mean?
earlier than now, so that we can get these orders placed, so that these vehicles come in a timely time. Because I know when EMS vehicles come in, the sheriff's office vehicles come in, and probably some other departments as well, you gotta send them out to the outfitter. And that takes another 6 weeks.
That's even more than that. And if you remember our budget, we have to wait over a year for a dump truck because of the
Yeah.
outfitting that you have to have. But yeah, the sheriff's vehicles, we have some specialized vehicles, water, wastewater, and the EMS vehicles, they have to go to these outfitters. And they've been short in terms of supplies and things like that. It's been a big delay.
And some of this is out of our control, but we can at least maybe try to move the procurement process forward as far as getting these vehicles in hand a little sooner than, well, like you said, we're still waiting on one for the sheriff's office, but
Yeah, I mean, and
it's just something I think we need to talk about.
you had done that, I think 2 years ago. You had got your proposals in while we were still in the old budget year to be able to get that process started, because we were trying to fix that.
In some of the other departments, we wait on purpose so that lease costs aren't as much for the year, so if we're only
And as
paying
long as they're
lease-
riding in the safe vehicles, especially with all of these
Right,
vehicles now,
exactly.
that's not a bad practice,
Right.
but when you got vehicles that are operating 12-hour shifts and responding to emergencies,
Right.
you want those vehicles right.
Are we on schedule, or do you want to take this big bite in the next one?
So the next one is a big bite. We're running a few minutes behind. We're about 10 minutes behind. So are you ready to launch off onto water, wastewater, and then have lunch, or do you want to break now and?
Doesn't matter, he can go ahead.
Whatever he wants to do.
We can wait for that if you want.
Okay, we'll get back to you in approximately 60 seconds.
Sheriff Hickman, you or Wayne have any concerns about vehicles that,
We have two sitting at Blue Tech, and Blue Tech is 90 days for light bars and stuff right now. And it took a while to get them, like Mike said, but we've got two sitting there now ready to go.
any concerns?
Certainly, obviously, supply chain and all those types of things, but I would certainly be in favor of trying to get those things ordered as soon as possible. I can't imagine any vehicle getting here before the beginning of the fiscal year. We're waiting, 9, 10 months. Long time.
Well, if it does show up, you can take it out of your budget, existing budget.
So lunch is here and it's available. Water, wastewater is a heavy lift and you may have a lot of questions, so I'd recommend go ahead and breaking for lunch and we can resume. We could even resume a few minutes early if you're interested.
Now, the vehicles that we just discussed, they haven't been ordered yet because it's not part of this process.
You would
Correct.
need the quotes to come in and you approve the quotes. So they're working on this. Like I said, I just got that list. Pat and I just got it this morning. So we'll get back and filter it around with the people that are interested, get details as far as what the accoutrements go with it. And then he'll get a quote and we'll bring it to you for approval.
Okay.
All right?
Okay, so we're gonna break for lunch, is that what we're doing?
And right now we're scheduled to resume at 12:45. We're actually I would just say we resume at 12:45 and we'll start with water wastewater. So we'll be about 15 minutes behind, but we still have plenty of time.
Okay.
Okay, wonderful. We did bring in
Thank you.
pizza for lunch.